You had a unique vantage point, obviously, this being your 11th year in the booth, calling the game with Bob Papiani. Tell me, Steelers win 31-25. Good result. We got the W. But what were your main takeaways from the game? Who impressed you? Who are some guys that you want to see a little bit more from?
Yeah, I think starting out and what impressed me is the fact that it was penalty free essentially for the Steelers on their side. They didn't beat themselves. I wanted to see if they were able to get in and out of the huddle, no pre-snap penalties, and all of those things materialized as the game went on. So I was excited to see that. Collectively as a group, we got to start at the quarterback position. Not much, you didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we thought we were going to see Will Howard. That did not happen because of the injury. But when you see where Mason's at, you saw where Skylar Thompson is at. Those guys, both of them collectively, 76% between the two. I know Mason was not 90%, but 76%, 4 touchdowns between those two. That is winning football. That's why they were able to get out of this game with a victory. So I'm excited about what those two brought to the table.
Yeah, especially Skylar and Mason. Like, not only is it Aaron's first year in this offense, it's those two first years in this offense too. And it was really impressive to see how much command they had in the huddle, throwing the football to some wide receivers that they're not familiar with. This is their first camp with these wide receivers too. So to see that type of connection this early in the first game was pretty impressive, especially from Skylar.
It was, and we didn't know how much we were going to see, but again, people who are familiar with Mason, but
Mm-hmm.
I was reminding people that yes, he had a great run, and when he was here 2023, winning 3 games in a row, getting him to the playoffs. But again, as he enters back into Pittsburgh, it is a completely different system. So to see him running it from that manner, that was great. Skylar, on the other hand, didn't know how much playing time was going to be, but as the week went on, that was expedited, and he knew that he was going to play at least a half, and he was able to get that. And when you go out there and able to move the ball, put the team into the end zone, have a really good 2-minute drill, and once he threw that touchdown pass, you knew that I wanted to see that celebration, and that's exactly what he gave us. He can play. Skylar, is a rookie. He started games. He started a playoff game as a rookie. So he does have the experience, but it's limited experience. But anytime you have game time, especially as a backup, that is important because only one quarterback can play at a time. So I was happy that Skylar was able to take advantage of his opportunity, create the conversation heading into preseason game number 2 to say, I belong. He wants the next opportunity because, again, if we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play in this game or not, if he does, guess what? That takes a couple series away from Skylar. So he just wants more of the opportunity. Not sure how it all plays out. Obviously, they drafted Will Howard in the 6th round, but he's just looking for opportunity to show that he can play if needed on this particular roster.
Yeah, and you kind of hinted at it in our last week's episode about this wide receiver group. Everybody's vying to be that number 2 guy, but do we really need a number 2 guy? But one of the guys that you mentioned that I thought stepped up in a big way was Scotty Miller. He was really finding space in that zone, sitting down, giving the quarterbacks a nice big target to throw to despite his smaller stature. And so you really hit that on the head, him coming up in a big way this preseason game.
And he wants the opportunity. People forget about it. I mean, this guy played down there in Tampa. He caught the big touchdown pass in the playoff run from Tom Brady there. So he has the experience. And of course, I'm a little bit biased because he's a Mid-American Conference guy. He went to Bowling Green. That's my conference. So I got to talk about him anytime that I can. But in all seriousness, being around this guy, he just, has a calm demeanor about him because there's not much you can do when everybody's talking about a Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin as the number 2. All you have to do is put your head down and get to work. Scotty has been doing that, and he came up big. He had 4 catches in this particular game. Again, now he's just hoping for the opportunity to get more playing time because, again, we don't know what DK Metcalf's status looks like, and if that's the case, will Robert Woods continue to be on the other side? So, again, because you cut that one preseason game, there's not a lot of snaps out there, and you got to fight for what you hopefully can earn.
Exactly. And I'm always looking at these undrafted guys or unheralded guys. We talked about how this team reminds you a lot of the 2005 Steelers, which we had a guy like Nate Washington. And so is there anybody undrafted or otherwise that's going under the radar that reminds you of a Nate Washington who showed out in this game as well?
Yeah, not necessarily showing out. He didn't have a lot of catches in this particular manner, but Ben Skoranek, this is a guy that was on the roster last year, was a late addition, but yet he contributed in this special teams manner. And that's what's going to have to happen when you start talking about your 5th and 6th receiver. If they don't play special teams, they don't have a chance. So that's why I say, okay, Ben Skoranek, because of the year he had last year, had a really good year here, and now just kind of figuring out how he fits in this particular manner, that's going to be somebody I pay attention to.
Yeah, his dad has some Western PA roots as well as some Fort Wayne roots. I don't know you knew that. We
No,
got
I
some
didn't
ballers in
see.
Fort Wayne. He's from Fort Wayne too, just like Rod Woodson. Good old Ben Scarani. And he went to Northwestern. So I appreciate you mentioning
There
my
you go.
fellow Wildcats. Keyshawn Williams, another Indiana grad, a guy from Indiana who played football there, stepped up and scored a touchdown. I thought he looked pretty good too.
Yeah, he did 5 catches on the day, and I think when you look back to see where he was at, he just kind of fighting, and you can see the blitz, and you could just see him in the stands, and I'm kind of chuckling because I'm like, he thinks he's getting his ball. You just got to sense another pep in your step when
Right.
that happens. And sure enough, as soon as the ball was snapped, it was just a matter of could Skylar Thompson hold off just enough because of that free edge rusher that was upon him. He was able to hold the football, able to deliver it, even though he was able to take a shot. And you can see Thompson going up there grabbing the ball, and it was a really good opportunity for him as he was navigating through this thing. So it was cool to see both of those two celebrating.
Right. And I mean, by and large, I thought the offense played really good.
And I'm sorry, I said Thompson. I meant Williams. I
Yeah,
apologize.
yeah. By and large, I thought the offense played well. We put points in the board, 4 touchdowns and a field goal. But if there was any position group that I thought we could have done better at, it is the running back position. Caleb Johnson, who's had a really good camp up to this point, I thought might have looked a little tentative out there. After going back and watching film, I was concerned because we didn't really, our yards per carry were a little low. And I thought maybe we didn't get enough push up front. But the O-line actually got pretty good push on some zone plays that I thought Caleb could have pressed the hole a little more. And like any rookie, there are some nerves that go into anything. And getting, just like quarterbacks need to get into rhythm with their wide receivers, running backs need to get in rhythm with their offensive line. And I think that's just going to take a few more games. I have faith in his ability, but that was a little bit of a disappointment seeing that there was some hay to be made in the run game that we did not take advantage of.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes down to, and of course, this, obviously playing offensive line, they put a lot of 8-man boxes down there. So there's always going to be one extra defender. So he has to just learn to be patient a little bit. In college, you could just outrun people with speed. And up here, you have to set it up. And I thought there was opportunities for Johnson to set up the block before he bounced it out.
Right.
And I think that's going to come with patience. So I'm sure as they sit back this week, they're going to cut up those films and say, hey, this is what you kind of need to do. Just be a little bit more patient. And once you do, you'll be able to get those big runs that you're hoping for.
Yep. Tell them to watch some film of Le'Veon Bell, the most patient runner of all time.
And when you saw Le'Veon do that, you started seeing James Conner kind of take a little bit of
Right.
patience from him. So again, it's just learning. And because it's the first game, that those type of things will come. But I think overall, when you look back, you mentioned running backs. For me, it was the punting group. And I'm not saying it in a negative light because when you're creating on third down, they were 8 of 11, but there's not a lot of punt opportunities there.
Right.
And because it's such a tight battle between these two punters that are here, you want to see them flow, and that's just something that ultimately these guys are not, they didn't have that opportunity to be able to do so. And that's just something that will come. I know Cameron Johnson, he had 2 punts. His longest was 52, but Corliss Waitman, he had 1 punt, which was 57.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do you weigh those two out? Because as great as they are, one is right hand, one is right footed, the other one's left footed. And that's pretty much the only difference between these two. So now they're going to have 2 preseason games to actually battle it out. And it's going to be a tough decision because the loser of this, they won't be sitting on the street. They will be on somebody else's roster.
Yeah.
So that's how good these punters are.
Good problem for the Steelers to have, obviously.